Welcome back to another edition of Viper Bites Thanksgiving Day football preview show. And this time, if you're with me still, that means you've avoided the meat sweats, you're not in no meat coma, and you're ready to talk about the 6-4 Buffalo Bills as they head over to New Orleans to take on the 5-5 Saints. Now, last time we saw the Bills, I got a little bit of an image in my head of Jonathan Taylor kind of wearing the old, like a buffalo kind of thrown over, much like The Rock did in Hercules with a lion. That's kind of the feeling I got there because Jonathan Taylor could do no wrong and Buffalo had no answer for them. Luckily, Josh Allen has another week to bounce back, and he gets the 22nd ranked fantasy defense at the quarterback position as the Saints are allowing 18.45 fantasy points per game against. Now, the Saints, in their defense, they've been okay, allowing 2,671 passing yards, and they've only allowed 2 more passing touchdowns than they have interception. But here's the real stat. They have allowed a league-high 5 rushing touchdowns to the quarterback position, and we all know that Josh Allen likes to call his own number from time to time, and he's done so 3 times already this season. Now, let's look at it. Josh Allen is averaging 24 fantasy points per game. That works out to, guess what? 240.5 fantasy points on the season. Allen comes into this one 6th in passing yards with 2,911, attempting 7.4 yards per pass with 21 touchdowns to only 8 interceptions. So look for Josh Allen to try and get himself right this week against the Saints. Now, running back, you got Zach Moss, you got Devin Singletary. Will one of you please step up? Actually, you know what? Don't. I want to see more of my guy, Matt Breida, anyway, who is clearly the more explosive of the 3 options out there. Breida, great stash, and even has a little bit of sleeper appeal in this one, as he has made the most of his opportunities, unlike some other backs. Moss, Singletary, I'm looking at you here. Now, dive a little bit deeper in here. We know that the Bills are looking to make those explosive plays, and that's where Breida has been so successful in the last 2 weeks. Now, New Orleans has allowed 656 yards on the ground on 206 attempts, which is somewhere around the 3.18 yards per attempt, and have allowed 428 yards, 2 backs in the passing game. Zach Moss has been the more effective back in the pass game, turning 18 receptions into 166 yards, but Singletary has seen more targets, 32 to 26. In other words, I don't like this matchup for either of these backs in the backfield. The only person in the backfield I really like is Josh Allen. But I'll tell you what, I do want to see more of Matt Breida this week because I think he could be a difference maker. Stefan Diggs, you know what? His season has been up and down to the point where you actually forget that he is still the wide receiver 9 in both standard and PPR scoring, averaging 14.3 points per game. Diggs is 10th in receptions with 60, 9th in targets with 92, 10th in receiving yards with 773, and 11th in touchdowns. So you'd think he'd be able to have a good game this week, especially coming off of 4 straight double-digit fantasy weeks. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't just a little bit concerned, especially after what happened last week. Yes, the stat sheet shows 18 fantasy points, but now, listen, 2 of his 4 receptions were in the end zone. He finished with 23 receiving yards that game and had plenty of garbage time opportunities to do so. Hey, I'm not knocking garbage time. Garbage time points are as good as any points in my book. Now, New Orleans has allowed 10 touchdowns to receivers and are 24th in the NFL in fantasy points allowed this season, allowing 37.26 points against. So I think you can relax and feel good about Diggs this week. I think it's a good rebound week for him. Yeah, I know. Rebound week after 2 touchdowns, but seriously, 23 yards, a little bit alarming to me. Now, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley have been equally effective and frustrating all in the same time. Now, it seems like for one or the other, one has to be on, one has to be off. Beasley has been targeted the most of the 2 with 74 targets and 57 receptions, but it's Sanders who has the most yards with 531 and touchdowns 4-1. Both look to be flex plays this week, as I think the Bills will be circling the wagons and trying to put one in on the Saints this week after last week's poor performance in Indianapolis there. Neither Sanders, 3 for 26, or Beasley, 4 for 23, had strong outings. I kind of like Sanders coming home for the holidays with a dish best served cold called revenge. Now, Dawson Knox dropped to tight end 10 status. He's still tight end 1 on the season, and he's missed several weeks. But his 10.5 fantasy points per game, that is still good enough for 6th at that position. Against the Colts last week, he was the most productive player in the field, hauling in 6 of 10 targets for 80 yards and 14 fantasy points in his second game back from injury. New Orleans has been pretty good at defending tight ends as well, having the 9th best points against in fantasy, allowing 9.83 per contest, and have only allowed 433 yards and 1 touchdown so far this year. Listen, the Bills have dropped to 2nd in the AFC East, as the New England Patriots have been running the table as of late. So between that and the loss last week, the Bills have something to prove here this week. Look out for a big-time revenge game for the Buffalo Bills, or at least a rebound. Now, for New Orleans, Trevor Siemian, Taysom Hill, good luck this week. I just feel the Bills are going to play angry all game long. This Bills team will be lining up the tables and looking to put Saints players through them at every opportunity they get. It does not matter who starts under center. Siemian, he had a good week last week, finishing the overall QB4 with 26.16 fantasy points and throwing for 3 touchdowns and running in another score. But that was the Eagles, not the Bills. Not the number 1 ranked Bills defense against both quarterbacks, 10.76, and receivers, 25.10. Buffalo has doubled the interception to touchdown ratio there, a stat that shows them with 15 turnovers and allowing only 7 passing touchdowns in 10 weeks of play. Siemian has thrown 2 picks in the last 4 games, and both were last week. Now, Taysom Hill, he put a little coin in his pocket this week and has a little bit of incentive money to be a quarterback at some point. But you know what? Good for you. You're not a quarterback. There, I said it. I don't care. Camara Ingram, it's a short week for Camara. It's an uphill battle for him to get in the lineup. He was just ruled out. Let's be honest. Wasn't practice Monday, wasn't practice Tuesday. I was going to say this is an inactive for Thursday, but I think they just came out and said that themselves. That means another week of Mark Ingram, maybe, because he's been battling his own little issues here as well as far as the injury report's concerned. Now, he's coming off of a 16-rush, 88-yard performance against the Eagles, in which he added another 25 yards on 6 of 8 targets. Ingram has 3 straight double-digit fantasy outings, and in the last 2 games, he has produced 100 or more scrimmage yards. Buffalo went into last week as a top-ranked defense against fantasy running backs, and Jonathan Taylor had them leave that contest as the now 6th-ranked fantasy defense against running backs. The Bills have allowed 8 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns to backs this season, but only 5 total to the running backs not named Jonathan Taylor. How soon can Mark Ingram get his name legally changed? We'll find out a little bit later. Now, talk about the wide receiver position. Who needs Michael Thomas anyway when you have Traquan Smith? All kidding aside, Smith posted back-to-back 11-plus fantasy outings in PPR and had done so in 3 of the last 4 contests. Now, in the last 2, he has at least 4 receptions, has seen at least 7 targets, and has become more adjusted to the Saints offense since returning from injury back in week 7. It's not looking good for him or any Saints pass catcher in this week. As we talked earlier about the Bills' ability to lock down receivers, okay, maybe they could use someone who could run a slant every once in a while. Now, Marquez Callaway, he'll run a slant, but he loves to go deep. He has a need for speed, and he comes into this one posting 98.2 fantasy points on the season, which is good enough for wide receiver 42 status, averaging just under 10 points per contest. While he may not have the yardage, 372, or the receptions, 25, he has been counted on scoring them tutties, averaging a touchdown every 4.18 receptions. That's right. Callaway is tied for 11th in the entire National Football League in touchdowns amongst pass catchers with 6 of them. And he has found that end zone in 3 straight weeks. I'm not saying Callaway has a big game. In fact, I'm kind of saying the opposite here. But if there is a Saints receiver that somehow finds his way to pay dirt, there's a good chance it's going to be Callaway. Now, I had this whole spiel on Adam Troutman this, Adam Troutman that. We had him as a waiver wire kind of guy. Well, guess what? He's going to miss this one with a knee injury. He has gone to the IR, and I don't know what to say. Like, what's that? Next man up on the depth chart? Well, that's Nick Vannett, the legend himself. I mean, can we seriously just grant Taysom Hill tight end eligibility right now just so I can do this video a little bit better and have a little bit of offensive flair at the last position? No? Okay. Anyway, I like the Buffalo Bills. They're going to come in here playing angry, but we'll see if there's a little bit of home cooking for the New Orleans Saints this way as they try and fend off the Buffalo Bills. The Bills cannot afford to lose another game as the Patriots keep on pushing forward. I really expect the Bills to have a big one here. You know what else is big? FantasyPoints.com. Head over there right now. Use promo code 21Vipers10. Get 10% of that subscription today. And again, make sure to check out all the Viper Bites videos. We've covered every single game on the Thanksgiving Day docket here, including the Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears matchup, the Raiders, and the Dallas Cowboys, and now finally the Bills and Saints. You can catch all those in one playlist on the Vipers Network. We will see. We got more coming down the line. We've got our Sunday Night Football preview. We've got our Monday Night Football preview. So stay tuned for that as we got plenty more coming your way. See you next time.